Okay, colleagues, good afternoon and welcome to our Administration and Finance Committee meeting on August the 13th. I will now call on William, our committee clerk, to conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Harris. Regional Chair Redmond.
She's here.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
Councillor Deutschman. Present. Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Chair Harris. Councillor Hunink.
Yes, sir.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett.
Present.
Councillor McCabe.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Councillor Salonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz. Councillor Verbanovic. Councillor Williams.
He's getting good.
Present.
Councillor Wolf. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I feel like it's like this rained out Boston Blue Jay game where we're kind of resuming in the seventh inning, type thing after the whatever. Anyway, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gathered today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and Chinantan peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, there are no presentations. However, we do have delegations, and I would like to welcome Tracy Van Kelsbeek and Alan Kayan from, of course, KW Oktoberfest. I see Tim is also in the crowd, so thank you for being here as well. Tracy and Alan, welcome. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. We're here today with KW Oktoberfest. We've shared an email with folks with some of our concerns around decrease in funding that's been proposed about our organization and wanted to share some of our thoughts. So thank you for having us today. As you know, this is a critical time for Oktoberfest as we reimagine our 56-year-old festival to ensure that it is welcoming and inclusive, keeping true to our Bavarian roots, all with a focus on long-term sustainability. We've provided you with data that indicates a 30 to 40% jump in festival costs since the pandemic from event planning, staffing, insurance, and keeping people safe, and that current funding, sponsorship, and grants are not keeping pace. This incentive funding is about supporting tourism, and we know that. And we think Oktoberfest, more than many other festivals in our region, have an eye on tourism. It's a pillar in our strategic plan. We have a strategic task force made of community leaders advising us on this specific topic. It's part of our operating fabric. We just hired a new tourism coordinator, which was a result of a grant that we just received. And this shows the importance that we place on tourism over many other areas of focus. We're building a new strategy, bringing back tours, building out new events like a hockey tournament in 2025 to bring more tourists. We're piloting a new project this year with a large transportation entity to bring people into the region for Oktoberfest from the GTA. This program is set to grow and evolve, not just for Oktoberfest, but for other regional festivals. And we're a destination for corporate partners across the country to host engaging activations that bring awareness and people to the region, with the example of a partnership with Mott's Clamato to build out a Best Caesar in Town finale.
Excellent. And while we appreciate what the formula is trying to do, festivals aren't one size fits all. And we feel that the formula, how it gets applied to Oktoberfest, really doesn't capture our true impact when it comes to tourism. Even when we do our economic impact studies, it's very hard to capture the full breadth of our festival because we go over 4 weeks, which most other festivals are a weekend or 4 days tops. And so with that, we can't afford to do a study that would capture our true impact, what we bring in terms of tourism numbers to the region. But being a fall festival outside of the general festival season as well really helps separate and differentiate us from other festivals in town. The other aspect is we do more with less. And having that be a part of the formula really impacts us and almost punishes us for being lean with our budget and being able to try and extend what we do to increase programming and increase the free events that we do within the region. And so that makes it very difficult for us to continue to move forward when things are getting cut and to offer these events that we continue to try and offer for the region.
Thanks, Alan. How does $10,000 affect us? It's a really big deal for us. It would affect our ability around tourism and marketing capabilities. These funds that we get from the region are unrestricted, so they can be used in the areas of the festival where they're needed most. A cut results in us spending less money outside of the region on our marketing spends. It interferes with our Wanderwagen programming that helps us to bring Oktoberfest to our rural communities as a tourism draw. It impacts our entertainment at our free downtown activations because we know that bigger names draw more people from afar, and other initiatives like Kidtoberfest, as well as our expansion of our Women in Leadership programming. The cut will directly affect our ability to support our Fest Holland partners, festivals, and events within our festival network within the community, and we will need more time to find additional sponsors to replace the funding. And folks, we are, our organization, while we're a festival at a certain time of the year, we do operate all year round. We're nonstop programming and planning all the time.
Thanks, Tracy. And that's an excellent point in terms of how we try to fill gaps within the region. Our Women of the Year event is a great example of this, and it's one we're trying to expand, but again, it's difficult to expand without the funds to do so. But this would be something else that would bring people into the region by expanding it to a full weekend event that would happen in May to help bring more tourists into our region. In conclusion, as our time is winding down here, what we would ask is that you would stay that reduction for this year so that we could continue to use those funds to provide programming to the region, and that you would also consider the formula that you're using moving forward, as it will continue to decrease what we receive from this funding and decrease our ability to impact tourism in a positive way in this region, and our ability to help other festivals, as we have been doing, to help them bring tourists into the region. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tracy and Alan. Councillor Verbenovic.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both of you for coming in and for what I know are your tireless efforts, not just during Oktoberfest, but year-round in terms of promoting the festival and, as you've indicated, supporting other events throughout the communities. And one of the ones I wanted to touch on is I know during COVID you had the ability to purchase some resources, the SL 100 or 200 or whatever stage, the video screen and so on. I believe those have been used by various community partners and so on. On a fee-for-service basis, but it just sort of demonstrates some of what you've just been talking about. I'm wondering if you can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it is something that fits within what we're trying to build as well with a festival network within the region. So sharing our resources, our physical resources, but what we've also done is shared our intellectual resources, using plans that we create for our events and giving them to other events in the region that are using the same footprint. An example would be Blues Fest this past month used our plan that we've created for that Kitchener space. And so these are the things that we continue to try to do, share our physical resources with other festivals in the region, but our intellectual resources as well, and helping them build and grow.
Okay, and the other question I have is, I've been hearing from other festivals across the country or reading about it and learning about it, but we're seeing a lot of festivals, not just in Canada, but elsewhere, who are struggling right now. And I'm just, I'm wondering if you can just speak to how important, quite frankly, those dollars are to make sure you continue to be viable going forward. Because, these kinds of events are what the community is looking for, our tourism, and uptowns and downtowns and so on are looking for more of. And so I'm just, I'm concerned, quite frankly, about the amount that's being proposed here, or the cuts that are being proposed here. Wondering if you can touch on that.
Yeah, so as you said, Mayor, definitely we've seen a lot of festivals close their door or really scale back a lot over the last couple of years since COVID. And a lot of that's due to that increase in cost of running events, that 30-40%, and folks just can't keep up with it. And so, I look at our festival, and I think there's nobody else that's quite situated like us, that we've been here for 56 years. We've been bringing the community together that long to celebrate our Bavarian roots, but also our community. And our festival has evolved over time to encourage other folks within the community of other cultures and ethnicities to get involved and celebrate really truly what represents Waterloo region. And so, yeah, I this is a big reason. I think most people know that why I'm here today. You know, I joined Oktoberfest last year to help get them through this next stage, and that's why we're here today to say, hey, we need your help, Region of Waterloo. We can't do it alone. We've got a great base of volunteers, people like Alan who are greatly committed and are great ambassadors for us. We have a tiny team of people that help to put this festival on, and we need help, not cuts.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Alan and Tracy, for coming in. I actually, Tracy, you sort of anticipated my question. I think it was 2018, 2019, the cities of Waterloo and Kitchener and the region put in money for a consultant paper. And I have to tell you, I thought it was the best consultant report that I had ever seen, and I've read lots of consultants' reports. Can you just talk about how you continue to move forward and change? Because I know there's been a lot of changes and a lot of things that I see now being manifested in Oktoberfest that have their roots back in that great advice, and just sort of how you see the way forward and continuing to change and be current with a demographic that isn't nearly as German as it was 36 years ago.
Yeah, I think I can speak to that well. Yeah, seeing that advice and seeing how the region has changed over the years, and it's understanding that as a festival, our region looks different than we did 56 years ago. And so we need a festival that's reflective of that, that's inviting to people to come out and celebrate with us, be Bavarian for the day, the week, the month now, being 4 weeks long. And part of that is being in accessible spaces and being barrier-free. So a lot of what we're trying to do as Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest Inc. is provide free events for people so that they can come out and celebrate the festival, they can understand what it's all about. But in doing so, it helps expand people's knowledge of what the region is, what the roots, the cultural roots of the region are, and allow them to expand and go and celebrate with our festival and partners as well. And so opening up those opportunities for them and reaching out outside of the region, understanding that we need to be a driver for tourism to the region was a big part of that study as well, because we have that footprint, we have that name across the country that we can utilize that platform to help continue to keep this region on the map from a tourism standpoint. And we continue to strive and work with our partners like Explore Waterloo Region, RTO4, to continue to do that and bring in people to the region to celebrate based on that information that we got. And part of that is showing how we are economic drivers in the region, and we take pride in that. We want to support this region. We want to create jobs. We want to create that tax income that happens during Oktoberfest, and so it's something we strive to continue to do.
We're part of the brand makeup of the region.
And just to say thank you for including all of Waterloo Region, the townships, Cambridge and Kitchener-Waterloo. It's really important.
Councillor James.
Thank you. Hi, Tracy and Alan. Thanks for coming in today. I know how much work goes into this festival. Being a past board member, it's a small, lean team, but you all accomplish a lot. I just have two questions. One is just about how inflation has affected the festival and how you've navigated that. And then the other question, I'll just put them out once here, around Oktoberfest Cares, because part of what you are doing and how you've expanded has been on the community kind of give back. Just speak to those two, the inflation, and then expand on Oktoberfest Cares.
Yeah, so I mentioned that increase in costs, and we're looking at a 30 to 40% increase in cost of running any kind of festival and any kind of event. And, you know, we have Tim Haddles, one of our board members, who's sitting here today, who helps us pull off the Wilkeman-Platz in downtown Kitchener. And I know he could attest to the raising costs. He's been helping us to run the downtown initiatives for many, many years. And it's just, it's through the roof on how to be able to put on big events, big scale events like ours. Like I think of the staging and the sound system alone is you know, has gone more than double, I would say, over the last 5-10 years. And you know, staging, the screen, all the things that people are expecting from a big production, all those things cost money. And especially when we're looking at hosting, going back to what Alan was talking about, and making sure that our festivals is welcoming and inclusive, we're trying to keep costs low for folks to be able to keep the barriers down so that they can attend, whether that, you know, and that's through free events. It's also through, you know, food choices that we're choosing. So things outside of pork, the traditional pork, the clothing that we're choosing, so that we have merchandise that's affordable for people, that they can feel as much part of the party if they're wearing a T-shirt that looks like they're wearing lederhosen, as opposed to wearing $600 pair of lederhosen. So just going back to your comments about the inflation piece, it has grown so much, and I know that every other festival out there is feeling it too. Insurance costs, the cost of security, the parade alone, the cost of that have gone up from last year, already over $2,000 just in 1 year alone, just for one event. So you think, everything that we're doing in downtown Kitchener and what all of our fest hall and partners are doing, all those costs just continue to go up and up and up. And the monies that we're getting through grants and sponsorships and other partnerships are just not keeping pace.
Okay, well, thank you again.
I was just going to respond to the
Okay.
Oktoberfest Cares piece. And thank you. It's a great question. We certainly take pride in partnering with organizations like the Food Bank and like the Grand River Hospital Foundation to help them use Oktoberfest to serve critical needs within our community, providing world-class healthcare or providing food for people that need it. Because it ties in with your inflation costs, it's harder and harder for people to afford food. So we take pride in being able to use our platform to help those other organizations. However, it's getting even harder for us to do that. We can't give away money when we can't run the festival. So that's what makes these cuts hurt even more, is it takes away our ability to support our community partners like the hospital and like the food bank.
Again, thank you, Alan and Tracy, for coming in, and have a great festival coming up. I've got my tickets, so see you at the festival. See you at Oktoberfest, rather. Okay, colleagues, we are going to move on to the consent agenda. We are going to pull item 622 out for discussion based on our review of the similar item in the last committee meeting. And so I'll ask council for approval of the remainder of the consent agenda, but Councilor Verbenovic. 623, vehicle procurement approval, we can. Any other? I guess that's just leaving one item. So I'll call for a mover and a seconder on the consent agenda item. Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Fox. And if we can vote on that 621, and then we'll get into discussion on 622. Okay. Oh, sorry, we have 611 and 621 that we're voting on now. Okay, colleagues, that is carried. We will go to 622, Administrative Penalty Program. So that is what it is, APP, the Administrative Penalty Program for Camera-Based Enforcement Program Bylaws and Update. I believe Teresa is going to speak to this. Teresa, welcome, with Kaylee as well. Kaylee and Teresa, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As many of you know, as I was just introduced by Chair Harris, my name is Teresa Mendler. I've been the region's project manager for our municipal speed camera program expansion over the past year. I'm currently the manager of our region's processing center for camera-based enforcement. I'm joined by my colleague Kaylee Pfaff. Kaylee is the region's supervisor of our administrative penalty program. So we're hoping to provide some additional information to the community safety zone presentation by my colleague Daryl. Transportation staff and the region's Provincial Offences Act administrative teams have been working very closely together over the past many months on the rollout of the region's municipal speed camera implementation to all school zones. For clarity, the region needs to move to an administrative penalty program, APPS, in order to process any tickets related to our automated speed enforcement program. The region's provincial court administration, the POA, cannot handle any increase in the number of tickets from the existing level of the program or any expansion of the program. Administrative penalties are also necessary for our camera-based enforcement, other camera-based enforcement that the region may plan to expand, including school bus stop arm program. It's also necessary for our existing red light camera program, and like I said, any other future programs, including regional bylaws that can be moved into administrative penalties that function as regional bylaws. So for example, the taxi bylaw. To clarify, we are not arbitrarily doubling the fines. The fine level is being put into alignment with the province's framework. We are moving the provincially set fines in line with the regulation for administrative penalties, which is the same as community safety zones under the Highway Traffic Act. Currently, Waterloo Region is the only municipality in Ontario that we're aware of that is not using community safety zones for speed camera programs. Why? Because a decision made by the region in 2021, at the time when the province initially allowed municipalities to establish speed camera programs, the regions was one of the first in Ontario that launched, and it was in its very startup phase. So it was established as a pilot, and the cameras were established at that time in school zones. As the purpose of the program is to change driver behavior and improve community safety, our focus has been on the program implementation and impact and not the fines and the revenue side. We did want to address some questions about equity. With regards to equity, as said previously, while we don't have control over the fine amount set by the province, under the administrative penalties program appeal process, the public who receive a ticket have the ability to submit an appeal to the region based on financial hardship. Regional staff are able to review the appeal submission and can decide to cancel the ticket or adjust the amount or allow more time to pay their fine amount. Moving the camera-based enforcement out of POA, the Provincial Offences Act, administration here at the region, results in the ability for the region to provide a more equitable service. The report in front of you today was on consent because initially it was really just a housekeeping report to enact the 2 bylaws that are necessary for the program to launch in November, as well as the policy for the appointment of the hearing officer. So Kaylee and I are happy to take any other questions.
Councillor Benovic.
Thank you very much, and thanks to staff for their presentation. The piece that you're raising around the AMPS program, and again, to the best of my knowledge and communicating with some of my colleagues, that wasn't the doubling of fines was not something that was part of that original report, was it?
I don't have the report in front of me, but I don't believe the Highway Traffic Act table was in the initial report, no.
Okay. And you're indicating that, yes, we need to move to AMPS if we want to increase our numbers of cameras and so on. But if in the meantime, in light of the deferral on the last item, and I plan to move a deferral at the appropriate time on this item, because I think the two are intertwined, and that was the whole point of the last deferral, so that there's dialogue between the region and area municipalities. Presumably what we have in place right now and how it's being processed through our partner at the City of Toronto and through the courts could continue. It's the increase in cameras and so on that would be the challenge. Is that correct?
Through the chair, we are expanding our program on November 15th. So no, we need administrative penalties. So the program needs to be launched now for the new cameras that we're setting up, that the signs have already gone up in the community. I can, Daryl can answer more details about those locations, but the signs have gone up for the new locations, the new cameras, that they go live November 18th.
But if council's not comfortable with AMPS, and I think we heard earlier that there were concerns, then what are the options available to us?
Through the chair, there would be no capacity for the region to process the tickets from the City of Toronto Joint Processing Center, so we would need to process them here, and they would need to be processed as administrative penalties because there's no capacity in our Provincial Offences Act court.
But if we don't approve AMPS, what are the options available to us is my question.
Matthew?
Through you, Chair, I think, this whole program has been established at the request of council. We've had the conversation in June of 2023. Then I recall an extensive conversation also at the end of last year. Many times I think, we've been pressed to go faster with the implementation of the program. We talked about the procurement. We went to procurement to get a new commercial partner. So evidently we're in the hands of council. So should council want to reconsider the entire program, and cancel the procurement and go back, we're always in the hands of council. So your decision is sovereign. But today we set up at the direction of council all of the foundational blocks to be ready for November, and all of these commitments are done. Again, we're in the hands of council, but I would say that a lot of work has been put into following council's direction on this. And just maybe to specify the difference between the two reports, I would say the first report, which is about community safety zone, was also established at the direction of council to expand the scope of speed enforcement, because we had heard from a number of you that limiting speed enforcement to Highway Traffic Act school zones was not really consistent, because we couldn't today under the School Zone Act, we can't put a camera on Roosevelt Road, we can't put a camera on at Chicopee Hills High School, we can't put a camera near playgrounds or seniors' residences. So I would say the previous report was really about setting up some rules for the expansion of the program beyond the school zones. But it's actually quite separate, because initially, the first report more than a year ago was really focused on the expansion on school zones only, and that's when we heard you on expanding it a little bit further to be able to go beyond what is technically a school zone. So they're connected, but they're also distinct. I would say we had a core program, and we have a core program that's about expanding speed cameras to school zones, and that's advancing at a bit of a separate rate than the further expansion to community safety zones that was the object of the previous report.
I know that you want to come back, Councillor Redmond. I'm going to get to the others, and then we'll
Okay,
in the loop.
and I will be moving a motion to refer consistent with what we did earlier at the appropriate time.
I'd like a point of order just on procedure. Do you want the other person to speak first, whoever's in line, or?
That's where I'm. We have three. I can add you to the list, and how about, if you don't mind?
Well, my point of order is I'm concerned that the procedure that there's. I'm concerned that council made a decision at a number of points, as acting CAO Getsky just outlined. We made a number of decisions over the past year, and so to overturn those decisions requires a reconsideration of notice.
Point of order.
That's
I'm
asking about procedure.
Yeah.
I'm asking about procedure.
I'm going to add, Councillor McKay, appreciate that. Some good questions there. I'm going to add you to the speakers list, and
I just want to make sure we're following correct procedure from the clerk, though.
Yeah.
That is a point of order. I'm asking about correct procedure.
The clerk has indicated that we are following, by having this on the agenda here, we are following, procedure, but I think your points are valid, so I'm going to come back to you there in a minute. But Councillor Hunick, I'll ask you to speak first, followed by Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Harris, and thank you, Teresa, for outlining the equity pieces. That makes me able to support this motion, the recommendation, gladly. And thank you also, Matthew, for reminding us of previous staff directions. I think what might be happening in the mind of myself and some of my colleagues is that we have these great ideas and then we realize the implementation pieces and we don't want to be considered the bad guys. But I think we need to refocus on the objective, which is to make our community safer for all people. And for that, I need to stand, or rather sit behind our initial directions to council, or to staff. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I have to admit I'm sort of scratching my head at the last deferral at the previous committee that dealt with this area, only because we basically deferred a report to do further consultation was exactly what the report said they were going to do. So I won't support this deferral because I have to say that there's always conflicting interests when we go forward. We have talked long and hard about this program. We've talked about buying additional red light cameras. We've talked about pedestrian safety. And I think that it's really important that we continue through this. A lot of work has gone into what council expressed as a desired outcome, and this is part of it. So I won't support a motion to refer or defer at this point in time. I think we need to move forward, and we need to ask for reports that come back. But we have already set this direction, and staff are merely doing what this council directed them to do.
Councillor Deutschman.
Thank you, Chair Harris. A couple of things. I appreciate CAO Gutska's comments. However, I want to put some perspective with respect to that. Sure, Council has asked that this matter be moved along, and we've been quite vocal about that. But as we move this matter along, there's certain things that have come up. Like today, we're introduced to criteria for establishing community safety zones. Now, correct me, but I think this is the first time those criteria are coming to us. And so it is completely fair for councillors, on behalf of the people that elected them, to make sure that the criteria is right before we establish something as significant as this. And I get back to when Commissioner Rose created the education sessions for us on the Blue Box program. And I cannot emphasize that enough. I mean, if you don't want to have long discussions at this horseshoe, then consider adding these information sessions ahead of time so councillors can be fully briefed and ask some questions in that setting. Now, with respect to this issue, the doubling of the fines, that is a significant issue. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time we're learning about a doubling under this app program. Okay, I'm being corrected. I'm being told this is not the first time. Okay, I apologize, but it seems to me it is the first time. And if we're going to introduce a program, and councillors, we're the representatives of the community. So we have the sense of what the community might be expecting of us or be concerned about. And if we're concerned that the community will not like to see these fines doubled or be that high in this program, completely fair to have further discussion about that. So this is not council pulling back on what we've asked to be done as quickly as possible. Okay, I'm getting a lot of feedback in my ear here. So I don't think, I'll ask, Chair, for some clarity here. I mean, I have the floor right now, as I understand it. Okay, and just to wrap up, I feel it's completely fair for these questions to be asked. And if it takes a little more time, it's because some of us feel it's to get it right. This is the whole purpose. We all get an opportunity to make our pitch. We'll have the vote, and whatever the majority decides, we all agree with. Thank you.
Okay. Well, now we'll give Councillor McCabe an opportunity to speak. All right. Okay. I know. Hey, it's good debate and discussion. So, Councillor McCabe, I'll let you carry on, and let's.
Okay, I hadn't waited. So yeah, I mean, to the points that the Councillor Deutschman was just making. I mean, it's really not accurate because we have made decisions. Staff have taken these forward. There's a program that's about to start on. Sorry, did you say the 15th or the 18th of November? So to bring these questions forward, we're literally at the 11th and a half hour. This is not fair. Staff have done this work. Other staff have been hired to do the processing. So what kind of message does this send to staff, to the community, to the people who've been hired now to run this program if we say, like, what happens to those people if we say now that we're going to defer this part of the community safety zone piece? Fine. You want to keep talking about it after staff at area municipalities and the region have talked about it for, months already? If you want to keep talking about that, fine. Go ahead. I mean, I don't agree with that because there's been a lot of time and effort put into that already, but fine. But in terms of the AMPS program, based on decisions that we've made, staff have gone out. they're purchasing the product. They've hired staff to run the program. The program is set to start on November 15th or 18th. I didn't quite catch that. What happens to this program and this process now if we say we defer this? The other concern I have is that, which I thought was a procedural concern, was that it feels like some members of council are trying to overturn the decisions we made without doing a notice of reconsideration or a motion of reconsideration. That's what my concern was as far as the procedural piece. So that's what I'm worried about. But my question is, we've hired some staff to run this program. We've bought equipment, software, I don't know what else. It's in the report. What happens if we now defer this?
Yeah. No, it's Councilor McCabe, it's a fair point. However, in discussion, obviously, now we're not going to, the procedural issue isn't going back on the decision to implement a further program. This is now the logistics to do so. So they somewhat differ, but in a roundabout way, you're on the right track, kinda. So, but let's just see where things go here, right? I will want to get in on this perhaps myself, but I'll go to Councillor Foxton next.
I
Thank you,
did
Chair.
have a question.
And I did have
a question.
Councillor
though.
Foxton, there was a
I
question.
did have a question about what happens to.
Sorry.
We've purchased software. We've purchased equipment. We've hired staff. If this decision is deferred, what happens? And what does that cost? What is that going to cost us?
Through the chair, we need to reconvene as staff to look at what that would look like. We have a new contract with a new vendor that's starting November 18th, and so we need to get back to you about what that would look like.
There must be penalties in that contract and things like, there's staff that have been hired, like what happens to staff that have just been hired to implement a program that if we decide now to defer it?
Through the chair, the program would have revenues and budgetary plans that would need to be adjusted that we would need to report back to council on.
Okay, Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, Chair. And as I asked last meeting, and I believe the meeting before, the definition of, in the dictionary about point of order is a matter of procedure. That when we debate the process of council under our procedural bylaw, not specific topics.
So I made a mistake, Councillor Foxton. I think we can move on.
Thank you.
I made a mistake.
A member of council can call a point of order and then make their pitch, and the chair would then rule that that is not a point of order, that we will go back to debate, which we're doing. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Schatz.
Thank you. Two questions. One is, what are the current rates? So we have speed cameras. We've got 4 of them that we've been using. How do these rates compare with what are being charged now?
You mean, sorry, through the chair, the question, Councillor Shantz, was regards to the vendor that's providing the camera? Is that the right question?
If I get a ticket now,
the fine amount.
How much do I pay, and how does that compare with what's in this report?
Yeah, so through the chair, the average fine that the Provincial Offences Act receives today is about $50. I'm going to just confirm with the manager, Patty here. About $50 is the average ticket that members of our community would receive for speeding in a municipal speed camera. So under the administrative penalties program, that will be about $100.
And is there a doubling currently?
That would be the double. That would be the change. So if you're traveling 1 to 19 kilometers over the speed limit, your rate is $5 per kilometer. Okay, and then there's also an MTO, Ministry of Transportation fee, and as well as a victim component to that ticket. And so that amount would then essentially be $10 per kilometer over. Like the fine would be doubled.
So how does that compare? That's what's in the report. Is that the very same thing that happens now if I'm speeding?
The chart is the same. So through the chair, so just to clarify, I think the question that you're asking is what the province has today, what the region is using to apply a ticket fine is a penalty rate in a school zone. Okay, so that would be the 1 to 19 kilometers, for example, on page 3, $5 per kilometer. Under go ahead, Kayla.
Sorry, I'll just step in and clarify. Under the Highway Traffic Act, if the speed penalty is not in a community safety zone, so under the Highway Traffic Act, the definition of a school zone does not include a community safety zone. However, under the Ontario Regulation 355-22, which is the Administrative Penalties Program, that definition does include a school zone. So currently, under the Highway Traffic Act, if you're in a school zone, that fine table is $2.50 for 1 kilometer to 19 kilometers per hour over, and it continues on that table. So $7.50 would be, half of that would be charged between 20 and 29 kilometers. I don't have the Highway Traffic Act schedule in front of me, but it is half. But it's really important to note that we are the outlier in this situation. So all other municipalities in Ontario are currently operating their speed programs, whether it's within a school zone or it's in a community safety zone, under this table, because they have layered that community safety zone onto their school zone. So they're already operating under this table that we've provided in our report. So it's important to know that we are the outlier in this situation, and other municipalities in Ontario are already charging this fine schedule.
Okay, thank you. And you just answered my second question, so thank you.
Councillor Verbenovich.
Thank you very much, Chair Harris. And, you know, I do want to echo the comments of Councillor Deutschmann earlier, because I am struggling a little bit where there seems to be a culture that exists, I feel at times, around the regional horseshoe, where there's an expectation, it seems, that whatever report comes forward, council is basically expected to simply give it a green light. And I think Councillor Deutschmann was absolutely right that this is the place where those of us who have been elected need to ask questions, need to sometimes defer things, need to sometimes send things back, need to sometimes say no to things. And I respect the work that staff does in their professional capacity, but that's the role of this council. And on that last issue, I respect that Chair Redmond and Councillor McCabe decided that they had a different viewpoint. That's their entitlement in relation to the rest of council on this issue. But obviously there was 14 other members of council that had a concern in terms of where that was going, and that we needed to send this back, not to do what the recommendation was saying, but in fact to get more information and to get stronger dialogue happening with the area municipalities where there's increasing concern about the direction where we're going on this. Chair Redmond, I'm not finding this funny. Respectfully, I do believe that when we look at this issue, this is something that is a significant concern to our communities. And so my question to you, Ms. Mendler, is when staff did the budget on this, was it based on fines at the single level or fines at a double level?
Through the chair, it was based on fines through the single level.
At the single level. So in fact, what you're saying to us, if it was based on fines at a single level and that wasn't included in the report, the potential revenues coming into the region will be double what was originally anticipated. Is that correct?
I stand corrected. I don't know if Cheryl wants to jump in here, but we did I'll let Cheryl jump in here.
Okay, yep.
Okay, through you, Chair, let me give this a try. So if I have it right, our POA system, our POA courts system cannot handle the level of infractions that will be coming through the municipal speed cameras. So the fact that, fines may be doubled under the APP program potentially is probably secondary, because we put all the extra revenue into a reserve for road safety initiatives. That is the approach that we had put in the cost. Originally, when we costed the program, we weren't aware of the capacity of POA. Or I would have to talk to my colleague Rod to confirm that. But in doing the program implementation and looking into what was needed, it was discovered that we will need to implement an administrative penalties program.
But respectfully, the question that I asked was, if we didn't include doubling of fines in the business plan that was presented to us on this issue, does that mean that, in fact, we will likely see twice the revenues? I'm not asking where the revenues are going. You've explained that. But we will likely see a doubling of the revenues because we're charging people twice the amount of money.
So I'll turn it over to Mathieu Getsky.
Just through you, Chair, and I mean, we could get the confirmation, but the budget was established on the double fine, because we cannot expand the program without apps. So it was already, so the budget figures, the revenue figures that are, so there's, when Teresa wasn't responsible for establishing the revenue tables, but these tables were based on the appropriate table from the HTA, which includes the doubled fines.
So when staff did the work, they included double the fines, but the report did not mention that we would be doubling fines of residents from what the normal, so if they get a speeding ticket from a police officer, if they get a speeding ticket today, we didn't think that we needed to mention in the report that those fines would be doubled?
Through the chair, so the tables themselves were not in the report, but I recall, for example, when councillors asked, I recall specifically being asked questions about the levels of fines, and the responses that we gave to councillors, so I don't know if that went to all of council, but we did provide both tables which are in the Highway Traffic Act, the one that's relative to school zones, and the one that is relative, and the one with the doubled fines that is relative to community safety zones and administrative penalties.
But I know that the fines are doubled in community safety zones. So the last question that I'm going to have, and then I'm going to move this. If we're saying the program, the budget was planned on 175 cameras, if area municipalities decide that they can't support the direction where this is going now, in terms of doubling of fines and so on, how is that going to impact the budget and where things go? Because I can tell you that, from conversations I've had with my council, there's significant concern around where this is going. So can someone tell me how that's going to impact the region's budget on this?
Through the chair. So when we designed the budget for this, we were unclear as to how much revenue to anticipate, because it is a brand new type of program in Ontario. We were first out of the gate. So when we designed the budget, we said any revenue above our expenditure would go into a reserve, just so that we weren't going to become reliant on those revenues to offset costs across our budget. And then we would evaluate based on experience to understand what that program would generate in terms of revenue. We tried to make it cost neutral to the operating budget when we designed the costing for the program.
So, Mr. Chair, in light of that, I'm going to move what I said earlier, which was my recommendation to refer this to staff consistent with the other report, to work with our area municipalities with a working group, and to work through some of these issues. The worst mistake that, in my opinion, we can make, particularly at a time when people are already struggling financially in our community, the worst mistake we can make is to simply move ahead because, well, you know what, we've kind of gone down this path, and even though this is new information and new reports, it's okay to proceed. I'm not prepared to do that, and I'd strongly urge my colleagues to be consistent as we were with the other item, refer it back, and we'll have it come back so that we can make a good, informed, educated decision. Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Foxton. I have four other speakers on the list. Would you like to would you like to go to a vote on the referral or deferral first, or would you like to get in what you need to? I think it's probably appropriate that you have your chance if you wanted to do that. So, Councillor Williams.
Oh, I just had a question.
Just a point of order.
Well, let's see if it's a point of order.
Yeah, I know Councillor Foxton's watching like a hawk. I'd like to ask the clerk, when there's a motion for deferral, are we entitled to debate the motion for deferral? I thought we had to go straight to the vote on a motion for deferral.
Time and place.
Well, time and place, but that's it.
Okay, so we can only, it is a point of order. And we will now entertain discussions only on the deferral. That's correct.
That's all you can debate on a deferral motion. So what is the time and place?
Okay, so if we need a time and place, Mr. Chair, I'll ask staff, is it reasonable to work with the area municipalities and bring this back for the April cycle? Sorry, not the April, the October cycle. April might be a little long.
Matthew, do you want to speak to this, or someone who wants to?
I'm asking Mr. Spooner.
Spooner.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I'm still unclear on what the further conversation with the area municipalities is intended to do. Is it intended to look at the warrant process for community safety zone? Is it intended to look at apps? Is it intended to be a revisit of the program? So I don't have an answer on when we will be able to respond, because I'm not clear on what.
So would it be reasonable for you to bring a full report or an interim report back? Because to answer your question, it's to look at the issue of warrants, it's to address the concerns that you've heard from members of council around things like the Roosevelt situation and so on. It's to address things like the AMPS doubling of fines and so on. And maybe part of what needs to happen is that AMPS needs to be put on hold while we advocate to the province to remove doubling as an automatic feature with AMPS. Maybe that's what needs to happen. So can you have those preliminary conversations at a senior staff level between the region and our area staff? I'll commit my own staff to that timeline and bring something back for the October meeting.
Yes, through you, Chair. Yep, we're in council's hands. So if that's how we'd like to proceed, October is a reasonable timeline. Thank you.
So committee day in October is the time and place.
Great.
There's the time and place. Councillor Williams, question?
Yeah, I just had a clarification. Is accepting these bylaws tied to the operations, or is this just giving us the authority to set up the actual adjudication process where we would have the authority to issue those fines and handle the complaints?
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused.
I know you wanted to get that. So we now are on the deferral only. So I'd love to answer that now for you or have it answered. However, we are sticking to the deferral. So if there's any questions with regards to that, Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I was going to rise on a point of personal privilege. Councillor Vravanovich referred to my facial expression. I want you to know I take this very seriously. There are many people in the chamber, and I was reacting to something that was unrelated to the topic at hand. And I know that, I don't know if this fits under the AMP, but is this just for regional roads that we're talking about, or is it for area municipal roads?
The region administers the municipal speed camera program on both regional roads and the area municipal roads.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McCabe on the deferral?
Yeah, on the deferral, through you, Chair, I'd just say that if, if people you decide to vote for this, then I think we need to also, if there's a report to come back, we have to have information about what costs we've already sunk into this and what the actual, like, we've already hired staff, we've already bought equipment, we've already bought licensing software and other pieces. What are we facing? We've signed contracts. Like, what kind of penalties and costs we will be facing should this be deferred?
Okay, I see some shaking of heads from Mr. Spooner, so I think that would be appropriate if it were to come back to include that information. So
Point of clarification, even though
okay.
I'm not sure that exists. Nobody, just to be clear, my motion does not ask or say anything about abandoning the program. So I think that everybody needs to understand that.
Yeah, no, we did. That was the point of Councillor McCabe's question on whether this was a procedural issue, and we said we're not revisiting the principle of the program. It is the logistics now on how we get there that I think is in question. So, folks, I'm going to ask that you look at your e-scribe to vote on the deferral, and we'll see where that goes or takes us. Okay, colleagues, that did carry. So we will move to our next. Folks, give us a minute here while we just sort out what we think is appropriate for the agenda, both finance and because of the delegations that we have before us at council. So just so while we've got the clerk looking into some of the procedural issues here for the audience that has joined us tonight in the for the council meeting to commence at 7, we had resumed 2 committee meetings earlier today starting at 4. This is the finance committee that started about 30 minutes ago. We've got still a pretty robust agenda, and we're basically making a decision on, whether we're going to continue on with the finance agenda, which I believe we've agreed that, or some of us have agreed that we would suspend the finance agenda, that we would allow our delegations that are here and ready to go for 7 be able to speak. And then we would likely take a small break and come back and resume our finance meeting. And I would obviously encourage everyone here for council to come on back and participate in that finance agenda. And then we'll resume our council meeting following that. So we're just sorting out kind of how we're going to get to that point, but that's what we're up to. Okay, so I'm going to ask council if there are no objections to basically pausing our finance committee and commencing our council meeting to allow the delegations that were here and prepared to present at 7 to go ahead. I will do that. So any objections to that? Okay, I don't see any. So I will move aside and call upon Chair Redmond to commence our council meeting tonight.
Colleagues, I see some colleagues that are asking for a bio break, so we will break and come back at 20 after, so be speedy.